Hi, welcome to this fabulous panel on London as a global gaming hub. Really delighted you can join us. I'm Louise Conolly-Smith. I'm the head of creative at London & Partners, and I'm really thrilled to be welcoming you to this session. London & Partners are the promotional organisation for London. If you're looking to internationalise, we can help. And my details will be on screen at the end of the presentation. And now I'd like to introduce our panel. Delighted to welcome Robert from Taylor Wessing, Sam from Ukie, and Alan from Amiqus. I'm going to go and ask every one of them to introduce themselves. So Robert, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm a partner at Taylor Wessing, specialising particularly in the gaming sector, and I help lots of gaming companies from all around the world in terms of their investment profile and their M&A activities.
Lovely. Sam, please introduce yourself next.
Hello everyone, I'm Sam Collins. I'm Head of Commercial and Membership at Ukie, the trade association for games in the UK. So my responsibility is to support games companies and help them prosper and thrive.
Fantastic. And Alan, please.
Hi, my name is Alan Dixon. I'm a recruiter for Amiqus, and I specialise in the video game sector, helping companies find the best talent out there to make the best games.
So I think, as you can hear, we've got a real panel of experts covering sort of everything you need when you're looking at, what's happening in London, what's happening in the UK, and to explain why there's been this sort of growth. And so really I want to talk about, with a really broad opening question, the games industry has significantly benefited in the last sort of 18, 20 months as people have been locked down in their homes. We've had a global pandemic, lots of people. Although we're opening up now, lots of people have been indoors. And it'd be really interesting to know if you have seen changes, whether it's in recruitment or whether it's in mergers and acquisitions or whether it's in, what you've been seeing as a membership organisation. And I'm actually going to ask all of you that question because I just think it's, you all have a different perspective of it. But I'll come to Sam first. It'd be really good to know what you've seen as a membership organisation.
Yeah, it is a fascinating question, and these challenges have really struck all sectors in the UK, particularly the creative industries. Those sectors that have tried to get people into cinemas, into theatres, etc., have just simply not been able to do it. Games, on the other hand, you play the games from home, you can access them from your home where you've been located, and more importantly, games have become, as they always have been, but it's been further exacerbated in the last 18 months, a way of communicating and keeping in touch with people. You're playing a game online, communicating with friends, and how many times have I been to see my son in his room and he's playing a game and he's talking to his friends online through a game rather than actually participating in that game. It's become a great way of keeping people together. More importantly, perhaps for our sector, the revenue has gone up dramatically as a result of people have been at home. We've seen growth in 2020. An early part of this year of 18%. I mean, normally the games industry is going double-digit growth, but 18% is amazing. So there's been lots of benefits that way in the games industry. It's played its part in keeping people suitably engaged and connected with each other.
That's just a really lovely overview because I think you're right. So many people have been, and I think the thing that's also happened is people have really seen a shift in, like you said, their children have been engaging and communicating. It's not been an isolated thing. Alan, what have you been seeing? Because, I've noticed a number of overseas companies coming to London for my focus, but really sort of scaling during this time, which is probably not what people expected. Is that what you've seen?
Absolutely, yeah. So originally with COVID, what we saw was huge hardware sales. All the hardware was selling out. And that's expanded the player base for video games across the industry. And what that has sort of slowly extrapolated to is now huge investment in video games. That's materializing as publishing deals, games being greenlit, and as a result, companies are hiring like we've never seen before. I also think that, as well as the sort of the impact to the industry in that way, I think the longer term impact has seen a rise in the legitimacy of video games as not only as a sector to be taken seriously, but as a career path for people who are currently playing games and are looking to make those further sort of industry choices towards their career. So yeah, I can see the sort of the short term impact has been definitely publishing deals and the money coming through from the interest in games, but also the career development and the career path selection, I think has been a real impact we'll see in the future.
That's really, I mean, thank you. That's really interesting. And I think, Robert, talking of the money, I think, your experience at Taylor Wessing, obviously you work with lots of companies in the game sector. You work with lots of companies, in fact, in the Asia-Pac region. I mean, what have you been seeing and what's been happening, if you can say, around mergers and acquisitions?
We've seen much increased revenue for gaming companies, as you would have expected, because people are locked at home and they've had much less other things to do, and so they focus very much on gaming activity, and that increase in revenue then feeds through into huge interest from acquirers of gaming businesses, and so we've seen much greater activity around the whole gaming sector in terms of M&A, the prices that are paid, the multiples that are paid for gaming companies. There's been more IPOs done. We've seen huge IPOs like Roblox, for example, which has reached enormous levels in terms of its market valuation in the US, and generally much greater interest in investing in games companies at all stages. So from early stage businesses up to mature and long-standing games companies, they've all been attracting investor interest. And what's been interesting is that this interest is coming both from other gaming companies. So you've seen the Goliaths in the marketplace going around looking for other gaming companies to acquire, and also from private equity, who've now got a real interest in gaming companies because of the amount of cash that they can generate. So it's been a very active time for M&A and investment into the games industry.
And in fact,
can I just add something onto that as well, Louise, if that's okay? What we have seen also is a continuation of that into as we start to come out of lockdown, which is really interesting. The way that the demand for talent has still been increasing. There's still been very proactive work in that M&A in the last 6 months, and the figures are still looking really good for this year, and you're starting to see some of the reports coming through from larger companies that have to publicly report their numbers. The games industry is continuing to expand, even as other sectors are opening up. So that shows a certain amount of faith in what games is doing as a creative industry, which is excellent. It's not a short-term thing. This does seem to be something which is continuing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think just to go off what Sam and Robert have said there about the sort of continual growth, it's not been just because of COVID, everyone's stuck at home, is going back to that legitimacy. It seems that I think video games is really being taken very, very seriously, not only as a career path, but also for investment opportunity and for business growth. So yeah, I can attest to the significant increase in requirement for talent, people who are making the games, and not only making them, but who are making commercial decisions around the sector.
Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting, hasn't it? Because I think one of the things, and I am going to talk about London and the UK now, and I'm probably going to come to Sam first, is, one of the things that we have seen at London and Partners is we have seen more companies interested in coming to London, but also to the UK. So, I'll work with companies who are potentially looking at London and Brighton and Manchester. And so it'd be really interesting, Sam, because I think one of the reasons people are interested is they're really interested once they understand more around the benefits. And I think I'd like to hear that from you more, where you see the pockets of talent, what you see as the trends. And then if you want to talk a bit about video games tax relief, but I also want to have Robert talk about what he sees in companies, the questions they're asking when they want to come to London and the UK. I mean, this is a wider piece than just London. But Sam, if we can start with you and then go to Robert.
Yeah, I think it's important to say that investment in the UK, foreign direct investment, is not a new thing. I mean, games has always benefited from having overseas businesses set up in the UK. I mean, you look at the major games businesses in the world, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, Electronic Arts, Activision, Epic, all of these businesses have consistently invested in the UK. And those reasons haven't changed, actually, over the years. There's been a few sort of tweaks on the fringes. We'll probably talk about video games tax relief, as you mentioned. But the UK has always had the best talent in the world. We have this amazing combination of creativity and technical prowess, which no other country has. I mean, there are certain areas of the world. I mean, we're talking about sort of Asia here today. I mean, amazing development in China, but they don't quite have the creativity that we still have here in the UK, although they're closing that gap very, very fast. So the talent has always been the thing that's driven investment in the UK. There's also that financial services centre here in the UK, low corporation tax, our relationship with other creative industries. There's great overlap between games and film and TV and animation in the UK. That whole ecosystem is absolutely fabulous here in the UK. And perhaps something that we haven't always looked at, there's that quality of life, the standard of schooling in the UK. You know, if you're encouraging people to invest in the UK and bring staff to the UK, you need to make sure that they're going to have a good quality of life. And that's a really important factor, certainly at the higher end when businesses are looking to move to the UK. So you've got this brilliant ecosystem, strong financial support and talent, and that's quite an intoxicating mix to encourage overseas investment in the UK. I mentioned some US and Japanese companies there. There's always been strong investment from those two markets in particular, but Asian investment from China in particular has gone through the roof in the last 2 or 3 years, and also from Sweden. An interesting development there. We might get to that later, where that money's coming from, but really interesting change that's happening in the UK at the moment. So, yeah, and it's all across the UK, as you say. Although London is that epicenter, there are 14 or 15 amazing games clusters around the UK, all attracting this form of investment.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're certainly seeing it. I mean, we've certainly seen an uplift. And Robert, it'd be really interesting. I mean, I don't want you to talk about the sort of granular detail of the sort of benefits, but I think, if you can give insights into some of those financial benefits that you see companies taking up, because oftentimes people do say to us, what are the financial benefits? And particularly when they're in the game sector, we do mention the video games tax relief. So I don't know if you want to sort of take that and sort of expand on it at all.
Well, so, I mean, a video games tax relief is obviously a very attractive financial incentive for people to be making their games here, because under that you can get up to 20% of the core production cost of the game can basically be refunded to you by the government through tax relief. So it's an incredibly attractive thing to have if you're actually developing your game in the UK. So for investors from Asia who may be looking to expand what they're doing and to set up companies or invest into companies within the UK, they can benefit from this tax relief, and it's something that they can come and discuss with us, and we can advise them further on it if they wish. But that's a very attractive matter. There's other areas are that it's easy to set up in the UK. There are no restrictions on foreign ownership, so you can have you can go and buy English companies easily. You can set up subsidiaries here and put more investment into them. There are there's nothing to stop you having foreign directors of English companies, for example. And there is a huge school of talent here, as there has been for many years, and much of the gaming industry has grown up and developed through the UK and a lot in London, not just London. Obviously, there's all parts of the country, but there's been some really dynamic areas within London which have helped the development of the gaming industry. And so you've got multiple reasons. You've got tax relief, you've got the ease of coming and setting up and investing here, the ease of doing business here, and a huge pool of talent in this area. And there has been a lot of investment by Asian companies into English gaming companies over the last few years. In particular, we've seen people like Tencent, for example, very active in the UK marketplace, and others. But it's a dynamic market in the UK and very attractive for investors.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I'm going to mention specifically, because Sam, you referred to it, is that there is a Swedish company who have recently announced that, well, they're setting up a AAA studio in London, and they recently announced that they've taken a new office space, and they're going to be looking to have between 200 and 250 staff in this new place. So I think that sort of overseas investment is a real insight into what companies are seeing, because setting up a AAA studio and looking to grow to that many people, I mean, I think we can safely assume, I don't know their financials, but we can safely assume they will be looking to benefit from video games tax relief. And that they'll also, and Alan, this is then the question for you, and that they'll also probably be looking to recruit. So, when people are looking to scale at that level, how do you as a recruiter, where are you seeing the talent hotspots, and what are you seeing, how do you help your clients?
So I think you've referred to Shark Mob there. Yes. I mean, I've helped them find their technical director and narrative director, actually. So yeah, quite relevant. We started helping them initially when they started setting up before they went public, which is something, I was really grateful to be a part of. But yeah, no, in terms of Talent Hub, I think the differences in recruitment that we're seeing is, typically in the UK and Europe, certainly, that most people in video games have always accepted geographical relocation as part of their career at some point. What we're seeing now with the advent of remote working is a complete access to roles that people have never really considered before. So now you've got access to the whole of the UK talent pool, regardless of where you're based. Previously, if you were based in London, you'd be looking at people ideally who lived in London, Guildford, Brighton, somewhere around that sort of M25 corridor. Now you're looking at people who can be based, as far north as Scotland or wherever in the country, as long as they can work remotely. So, yeah, if anything, it's been a really good time now, more than ever, to enjoy the benefits of London, the transport links, the phenomenal city life, the talent that exists there already. But now it has a gateway to the rest of the UK talent, which is really good. Yeah.
We've certainly seen that. Someone I know is working up in the north of England, and his company are based in London, and it's remote working. So the expectation is that he might come to London twice a year, but he's not living. It's just like you said, it's an interesting paradigm shift, and I think it's not necessarily something all companies are comfortable with, but there's definitely been a change.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's interesting. You think the UK is not a large country, so actually doing occasional travel is not necessarily a barrier. There is an absolute need, though. If you look at the number of vacancies, and I'm going to put a number out there, but you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. The number of vacancies in the games industry in the UK at the moment is just over 3,000.
Yeah.
Looking at our own assessments, that's an incredible amount of vacancies that we can't currently fill. So how do we fill those positions? Sure, people working in different parts of the country will free up some of that, less needs to travel around. Are we doing enough to support the young people coming into the industry so they're ready to work in this industry in the future? There's an incredible amount of investment going into young talent skills development at the moment. Creating digital literate people, even if they're not necessarily doing games courses, because you don't have to have a games degree to work in the games industry. We're going to be attracting people from other sectors to pivot into games. We're looking to train people who are currently not at the qualification level that we need to do some of those entry-level jobs to come into the industry, and then we grow it from there. There are so many things going on at the moment to support that. And the other thing is individuals working from overseas in UK companies. In the past, there was lots of issues with visas and bringing people in and a high cost of doing so. Now, if you go through the right regulations and appropriate tax systems, you can employ people overseas to work for your studio in the UK. But it is a challenge, and Alan's got a lot of work to do personally to fix this gap. Alan, over to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think Sam's right. I think one of the things that often gets overlooked in the UK is the really, really strong university network that has had for generations really unofficial links to the games industry. There's just been a few universities that have just kind of been known for video games. But now, with the legitimacy of video games as a career, as well as seeing those game-specific degrees, we're now seeing people from university with a non-games degree look into the industry for opportunity, which I think is great. And hopefully we can kind of formalize the routes in for graduates to the games industry, because at the moment there's very few non-monetized ways of really directing graduates to the industry. But likewise, as Sam was saying, we're also looking for people to pivot career changes to pivot into games, especially people from diverse and non-represented backgrounds, because that's where we see a lot of people coming from to further diverse the workforce in games. So there's numerous boot camps. I've personally been a part of one just in the last few months, and we're partnering with a couple of different providers of courses to help people familiarize themselves with the games industry and how to operate within it and how to find their space within within the games industry. So yeah, in terms of talent, I mean, you're right. The demand for video games experience had never been higher. I've never seen it higher in all my 15 years of experience. But the good thing about the UK as well is we're seen as an aspirational destination for people within, you know, the North American market, certainly, and within Europe as well, with those countries with not really an established network of games industry studios like the UK has. We're often seen as a destination for them to go as part of their career development. You know, someone from Spain, for example, might work in sort of local, you know, sort of smaller indie companies, and then go, right, I want to get somewhere in the UK, because that's seen as being, you know, quite aspirational, which is great. So yeah, and Sam's right again with the with remote working, you know, exactly going through the right channels, specifically around employment law and tax. We can see people working on a freelance basis for UK companies that are otherwise based in Europe. So when you talk about the UK, much like you talk about London, you've got to consider the UK. When you talk about the UK, you've got to consider Europe. In Western Europe especially, English as a spoken language, the rate is absolutely phenomenal, and the talent out there is great. And often you can access a lot of Western European talent if you base yourself within the UK. So talent it's there. It's just directing it to the right opportunity, which, yeah, like Sam says, I've got my work cut out for me.
Yeah, I mean,
can I throw a note of caution in there, Louise?
Yes,
is that all right?
Sure.
I mean, one of the sort of the double-edged swords here, one of the things that has pros and cons, overseas investment in the UK, acquiring UK studios, does give us a little bit less control over those studios that we want to support in the UK. So although we proactively encourage it, what we have to do in the games industry in the UK is make sure that we're constantly supporting the smaller UK businesses creating their own IP so that they can grow into the next big studios. Yeah. And that's a big challenge at the moment, and something that I know Taylor Wessing do brilliantly to support small and medium-sized businesses to thrive and to grow, because we want small UK studios, as they've always done, those small indie studios, to find those successes, to find those niches in the market and grow so that they can expand in the future.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
I think that's one of the things that, I think that's one of the things that's really developed over the last couple of years. Actually, is that the growth of the gaming industry has been such that there is now much more money available to go into the younger gaming companies and to help them grow than there would have been a few years ago. It's seen as a core investment class now. So going into gaming companies is something that's there are some very specialist investors doing it, some very well-known VCs putting money into this space, and it's really moved forward so that the younger gaming companies can grow. And I was at a gaming dinner just 10 days ago, and the number of UK companies that are now really thriving and coming up with some amazing new games. Plus, it's not just the games; actually, it's the infrastructure too behind the games. The number of companies that are thriving in this space is exploding. There's real belief behind the companies. One other thing worth mentioning is just the IP protection side of matters. So the UK is a great place to come and get and develop games, partly because the IP laws here are so well developed and flexible and sophisticated, so that you get protection for the IP that you develop without fear of people coming and ripping it off, if I can use that word. But we're a very sophisticated system, and it's a very safe place in which to develop. So that's another aspect of coming to the UK.
That's just a really interesting insight. Thank you for that. But it's something, like you said, it's not necessarily something you think about when you first think about internationalizing, but it's such a core something to a company's value, is that their IP is protected. So, no, thank you so much for raising that. One of the things, sort of slightly changing, one of the things that I'd be interested in, and I don't know if I should set this up first, so I'm going to put it out there, and jump in if it's of interest. What have you noticed has changed in the games industry? Given the last 18, 20 months, has there been a shift? Have you seen accelerated innovation? And if so, in what areas? I don't know, maybe Sam, that would sit with you most. I don't know.
Yes, I think in twofold, actually. There's two ways where there's been a significant change. Firstly, the way that companies work internally. Clearly, they've had to redefine the whole systems that they work as businesses because they're working remotely. Imagine you're making the next big AAA game in a team of 300 people, or you're a small studio of 3 people making your first game. How on earth can you work remotely when you would normally be sitting there and working together with that creativity, that hub of excitement of working together? It's an incredible challenge, and companies have, large and small, found amazing ways of still getting that creative spark going. And that's using new technologies and developing new systems and really concentrating on that whole sort of teamwork ethic within a company. I've been really impressed by the way companies have done that. And secondly, just that whole use of innovation and driving forward. I mean, there's a whole series of technological advancements that have happened, not just through remote working, but technology never stands still. And even though we've been through periods of tumult, everything has still been being pushed forward. Technology never stops. There's always been new incremental changes, improvements, whether it's the development systems, the development platforms, the expansion of technological delivery solutions so that we can get more of our content broadcast around the world. Streaming is often talked about. You can't read an article about the games industry at the moment without looking at non-fungible tokens, NFTs and cryptocurrency and all these kinds of things. The way the games industry not only embraces new technology but drives that innovation. The games industry, perhaps, and maybe other sectors won't agree with me on this, but some of the developments we've worked on around virtual production have really supported other industries to a really high extent.
Yeah.
I'm not saying games industry here have saved other industries, but we're certainly playing our part in developing technology that's helped other industries benefit. And we're benefiting from their input on those systems as well. So it's a real two-way thing. So I've been really impressed with the way that's been driven forward in the last couple of years in particular.
Yeah, no. I mean, talking about NFTs, I mean, is that and cryptocurrency in games? I mean, I have seen that as well. And in fact, across not just games, like you said, also creative industries in general. I mean, is that something, Robert, that you have seen as well? Is that something you get involved in? Or that would be another bit of Taylor Wessing that looks into that? Because it's obviously quite a new but very fast-growing sector. So I'm sure you guys must be very interested in what's going on there.
Well, we are very interested in it. It is new. It is, as you say, fast growing. I think it's a matter of it's still a matter of bit of watch this space and see how it develops and how NFTs are going to come through within games. I mean, there's a massive amount of interest in it, and it's there's also a massive amount of money being made in NFTs at the moment in terms of their appreciation. So yeah, it comes up as a topic all the time at the moment. It's really spiked, to be honest, in the last few months. And we watch and see. But there are still issues around how the whole crypto market works and how the regulators, etc., are going to approach it. So it's a developing area.
No, absolutely. And have you seen sort of changes in sort of accelerated innovation? I mean, what areas have you observed? I mean, or is it more not something you necessarily get involved in as much?
Well, for us, we've just seen an increase in the investment levels and the willingness to invest in younger businesses, which is hugely encouraging, and it's a massive boost to all of those teams that want to get on the road in developing their games. Much easier now than it was to raise the money.
Which really, really matters. And then they all come to you, Alan, because they've raised the money. And part of the reason they've raised the money is that they're going to recruit more staff.
That's right, yeah. I mean, I totally agree. What we've seen here is necessity is the mother of invention. And I think what's been really apparent through COVID is that it's really pushed these tools for remote working and collaboration to the front, and they've had to be polished, they've had to be made better, like Sam said, and as a result, you're getting these teams, these virtual teams who are making incredible things. And what we've seen is a real adoption of games technology by seam industries, those industries that sit kind of adjacent to games and where the technology use overlaps. For example, especially in film and animation, we've seen a real surge in demand for people specifically from the games industry to go into that industry very recently. But yeah, that's right. We've seen a huge surge in demand for anyone with games industry experience, not only within games, but outside of games. What we've also seen is several new clients this year who have set up fully remote studios from the offset, where they have no UK base whatsoever, apart from a limited company. And that's been really interesting as well, because I think a lot of people have realized that lifestyle-wise, they want that's okay with them, and they're making it work from fully remote, which I think is really incredible. I mean, they're fairly new in terms of games, so they've not really shipped anything that we can see, but I'm really excited for the future of to see those fully remote studios. We've had a few traditionally within the UK, Slightly Mad Studios as an example, made some amazing racing simulators, but now it's becoming more common. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what those guys bring out. Beyond that, I think you're absolutely right. I think the advent in video games as a hobby has really meant that there's been some really cool indie studios that are making games that traditionally have been a little bit overlooked. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about the widening audience of games into sort of non-gamer kind of categories. I think 50% of all mobile gamers are female. And what we're seeing is more games being delivered towards underserved demographics. So we're seeing more games that are really more about mindfulness and mental health. Power washing simulators is a great example of that. There was recently a game called Unpacking, where you literally unpack your belongings into a room that has got really good reviews. And Animal Crossing, I think that was really famous and really growing game on the Nintendo Switch, and that resulted in actually the Nintendo Switch is selling out, especially at the height of COVID. So I'm really enjoying seeing these games come to prominence and become a real authentic, respected area of games, and which is driving these indie studios to grow as well, which is always really positive to see.
Yeah.
If I can throw in a couple of other key things that are going to influence games in the next sort of year, if we look, I mean, Alan mentioned that the Nintendo Switch, of course, there's been new releases from Microsoft and Sony, new consoles. The next generation of consoles has started. That's always driving innovation, creativity, because you've got this extra power to play with in your consoles, which is amazing. Cloud gaming is going to be an enormous driver of games in the next 3 to 5 years. 5G is coming on stream now. All of these technological things are going to drive games to new levels in the next 3 or 4 years, without doubt. Absolutely.
Yeah. I want to ask one of the questions I want to ask, and this is also because, Sam, I often do this anyway because you're always so helpful, is often when I speak to overseas companies, they sort of want to understand the ecosystem, they want to understand who they should know, and so I give them advice, but obviously I then try and connect them to the people that are actually doing the work, and so I connect them to you, Sam, but I'd be really interested to hear from all of you, but starting with Sam is, when you speak to an overseas company who are thinking about internationalizing and thinking about the UK, what's the advice that you give them? What do you say? This is what you need to consider. These are the important things.
Well, I'll try and group them into two types of companies. There's some that are trying to access the Western games market, particularly if they're coming from Asia, they're trying to access the Western games market, and they wonder if the UK is a place to start with that. And I totally agree with that. If you're a business that you might not need an office in the UK to actually sell globally, but you can use the UK as a platform to reach all those markets because of our great connections with Europe and the United States in particular, we have amazing service companies here in the UK. I mean, Alan, just in recruitment, Amiqus is amazing, but there's a raft of very, very good service companies. We have the best legal firms, tax advisors. We have the best PR and marketing agencies in the world in the UK. So if you want to reach global markets, come to the UK and chat to those businesses, and it really projects you globally. Now, clearly, we would love them to come and set up an office here and build a presence here and grow from there. And it is that combination of that whole ecosystem. Where do you want to be in the UK? What are the particular reasons for you being in a certain location? You tend to find that studios want to be near other similar studios. So almost success goes to success. When you look at the amazing studios in London in particular, no wonder other companies want to come to London. They want to be next to those businesses for the talent, for the ecosystem, and as Robert said earlier about that sort of consistent regulatory setup and ease of setting up a business and growing. So the UK is just that perfect mix of all of those things in one. But you do need to do your research.
Yeah.
I know we're focusing on London here. There are other parts of the country you might want to look at. They have slightly different ecosystems and different setups and access to universities, and also local education funding. You know, the UK government is devolving more funds to different regions of the UK. Have a look at that and see what the impact is. But London remains our centre of creativity. There's about 33% of all games companies are in London. So that's still the epicentre.
Perfect.
That's what I would say.
Lovely. And then, Robert, the other thing we do is we always introduce people to lawyers because they need to get that bit set up. I mean, what's your advice when you're working with overseas companies who are looking to internationalise? Because oftentimes they'll not just be looking to the UK; they'll be looking at other markets. So, you know, what are the things that you say this is what you really need to consider?
Yes, I mean, the interesting thing about the UK is if you're coming from Asia, for example, the UK is in a great position. It's got immediate access to the whole of Europe, but you're using English as the language, and you've got the whole English ecosystem around gaming here, which is so well developed. And then you've also got easy and natural access into the US marketplace, because there continues to be strong links between the UK and the US in terms of the gaming industry. And indeed, earlier this year I was dealing with the sale of a very well-known UK gaming company that was Asian-owned, was sold to a US private equity house. The deal was done in the UK, and all the different elements were nicely joined together by having everything happening within the UK. So it's a great place to be for connectivity. It's a great place to be for the ecosystem, and for talent, as well as for the financial benefits, which we've already spoken about.
It's lovely. And then Alan, and literally this is truly how I work. You know, I'll speak to Sam first because he'll tell someone about this is what the ecosystem's like. Then I'll speak to a lawyer because they will get them sorted out, and Taylor Wessing is brilliant at that. And then I'll speak to a recruiter because the next thing they'll want is they'll want staff if they're not bringing their own staff with them. You know, and what do you say to people when they're coming? You know, because you have helped overseas entities set up in London and the UK.
That's right. We really try to understand what they're trying to achieve. You know, exactly what Sam says. You know, are you looking to bring your product to the Western market, or are you looking to diversify your product offering to develop a game that's tailored to the Western market? And we really try to understand the kind of people that they want to bring and to attract to their studio. And then we go out to the market, we map the market for them, bring them a short list and say, you know, who would you like to bring to the studio? Why is it going to interest them? And then we take that, and the thing that we can bring is we can bring a relatively unknown brand or opportunity to the market and make the key people aware of it. I would say the key message, I would say, absolutely research, location, obviously, but you know, have some face time, come to events, the develop events, EGX, RESD events, really get a flavour for the British UK scene. The support network and the support services available to game studios are phenomenal, localization, customer services, and we've got political representation there in UK, and also with the legal side with the likes of Robert. So, yeah, I would say come to the UK, bring with you an open mind, but really have a clear idea of what you're trying to achieve, and then we can get you the best talent to do that. And then, yeah. Good luck with it.
Lovely. Now, we've nearly come to the end of our session, so thank you all so much. But what I'm going to do, you have each got 20 seconds, so not a lot of time, to tell me what are you most excited about in the game sector in the next 6 months, say. And let's start with Alan. We'll do Alan, Robert, and then we'll do Sam. So what are you most excited about?
The thing I'm most excited about with the fundamental changes in hiring practice, in thinking, and in work practice, and these are changes across, not just, they transcend games. I'm really excited about the opportunities to bring marginalised groups into the games industry because of the changes in flexibility in remote working and flexible working beyond that.
Thank you. Robert?
I think we're going through an explosion in the industry in the UK in terms of the ability for companies big and small to develop more games within the UK environment. I think organisations like Ukie, London Games Festival, etc., are doing amazing things in order to help this happen. And I just think there's a really exciting few years ahead for the whole gaming industry in the UK.
Lovely. Sam.
Yeah, getting back to live events, seeing some people, really looking forward to that. And you should check out the games coming out this Christmas. There are some absolutely stunning UK-developed games coming out in the next 4 or 5 months. Go check them out and go play them and have some fun.
Brilliant. Well, remains to me to say thank you all so much. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Alan. Let's say goodbye, and we're counting down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye all. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.